Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures Podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, gentlemen.
We are back.
Good morning.
Live.
I know.
Took a couple days off. People were traveling, doing different things. And we're back now.
Again, for audio people, literally no change. But for us, this is great. I haven't seen you guys in 2 weeks. Missed you.
I will say, Tommy, the beard is looking really good. You're always worried about, it doesn't look right. It's not going to be great. I'm like, well, it looks wonderful. So I definitely, I haven't seen you in a week. Tommy, if for those of you who are on camera or off listening to the audio podcast or on the audio side of things, Tommy was almost clean shaven when I left. Tommy looks like he has a 8-month beard going on right now. It is very dark and he doesn't have a bit of gray in it. And when my wife was looking at me the other day, she's like, "You're all gray."
Yeah.
All gray.
Well, I'll say the wife first. A lot of trimming. There's a lot of TLD or tender loving care there.
TLD.
TLD. The other thing with the beard that I'm really enjoying is the chin rub kind of thing when you're thinking, which I've just started doing it. It's a good point.
Yeah, it is.
That's
a thing.
The same as having a really good point, like, and you're going to say something you're like really truthful. You got to take the glasses off. Like, well, let me tell you about workspaces. You can take the glasses off. Like,
I can't take the glasses off, then I wouldn't be able to see anyone. If I did that, I'd be talking to like the sky, and people be like, "Why are your eyes cross-eyed?" So I don't take the glasses when I.
One of those dramatic things you can do, but you should try it. Next time you have a truthful thing to say, just take the glasses off, and then just put them back on as you're saying it.
I think I just fiddle with my coffee cup. It's usually if I have something to say, I'll say something and then I'll take a sip of coffee, and that is the finality of the statement.
Yeah, you're looking sharp, Tommy. I'm a little jealous here. No grays, no whites. That's nice, man.
I want to be young again.
Up here and on the sides now, we're going
that strong Italian blood.
Yeah,
longevity, right?
So no, it's not long. We'll keep the black hair, but croak kind of thing. So.
Amazing. All right, let's jump into our main topic. We're going to skip our intro today. We started a little bit late today.
We can't. Oh no, we can't. There's a short one. No,
there's an intro. Okay,
a short one because we before the break. We were talking about Paginated, and you were like, "Man, this is so difficult. This interface, blah 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 blah." And the next day, August 5th, there's release of the Paginated experience in the service only.
Yes, service build only. Correct. Have you been playing with this?
I have not, but I was like, because I just got back. I'm under a flood of trying to catch up now, right?
Yes, true.
There's a penalty for taking a week off.
There is now. Yes,
true. And it is all the work that you didn't do coming back in spades. But no, caught that one. Can't wait to go check it out. But yeah, a simpler drag and drop interface for you, Mike.
Yes, I love it. Honestly,
bam.
This is what I was
soft responding all the time.
This is what I was saying from day one. It was like, look, Paginated Reports is not that complicated. It's actually, even if you just look at the bits of the software you need to download, it's much smaller. Make the whole thing be a web-based program. I think people will like it. Honestly, I love the experience. It's a little bit jarring from what it was previously, but I get a lot more capability now. It looks like there's a couple buttons that might let me add images or other text items on the page. My biggest thing is parameters. Just letting me make reports with required parameters is really huge, because when I'm using it in the desktop application for Report Builder, it's actually quite confusing to make a parameter and make it work correctly. This shouldn't be rocket science. This should be pretty straightforward. So having the website or the web version of Paginated Reports just do that for you, dude, I'm a fan. It's really good.
And it makes a lot of sense just to be the web. It really has the experience of what it should have been the whole time, if the technology was available. But why have another file for something that?
Well, think of it. I mean, it's like they're trying to gauge. I think it's like a gauging interest thing, right? You build these Power BI reports, and you could, yes, technically you can connect Paginated Reports to them. Well, why is any of this Paginated Report stuff appearing as on the development roadmap? People are requesting it. Microsoft is getting requests from companies that say, look, we just need to get access to the data. There's no good tool to access the data in table form.
I can't be restricted by 100,000 rows.
Exactly.
I need a million rows.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, here's more capacity.
Exactly. All right. And to Microsoft's credit here, like, look, You want it? Here it is.
Yeah.
It just consumes capacity and it just runs. So that's what it should be doing, honestly.
Maybe, see, that was the missed thing right out of the gate, right? Like if you want to talk about hogs of capacity, it's gonna be these like, yep, I want the entire table every time, dump it out. And it's like, yeah, we can give that to you. Yep. Here's the capacity for you and for you.
Well, it's I really like that you made that point, Seth, because this is the thing, we've made this point a number of times. It's either access to data or insights on data. And I feel like the report side is more of the insightful data. We've already kind of done the analysis and said, here's a regular report that you're going to need over and over again, aggregated the way you need to see it. But there's a lot of times we don't know yet. We just need access to the information. The Paginated Reports is that meeting that need. There's one other point here I wanted to make around this one was the Paginated Reports piece. A blog, we were just working with a client recently trying to get Paginated Reports to work on really big tables, like billion row tables. We have a table that has multiple segments of information, and I'm going to get down to like a couple 100,000 rows in a table from a very large single table, right? The real idea of like a cube, right? This is the actual data warehouse. Well, you can now run Paginated Reports against the SQL endpoint, which reads directly from Direct Lake. So you can make your tables in Delta format in the lakehouse, and your SQL endpoint can then listen to the Paginated report, parse the query, and then just go grab just the data it needs from the massive table. This was huge.
Yeah.
Some lady was, I can't remember her name. I really apologize, but I saw a blog. Someone wrote an article. She did a great job on it, and she said, "Look, I'm using Direct Lake or the semantic SQL endpoint." The SQL endpoint to go get tables of data in Paginated Reports, and it was blazing fast to go parse down. Because again, it's just filtering data down to a flat white table. So like this is a really important for people to know this exists.
Where you think where we've been or where we've come from back in the day when we wanted that, I felt like an old like Chicago cop. Here's what you need to do. You open this Excel file, touch that data tab. Here's that Power Query. Don't do anything else. Click refresh. Now you're going to wait like 10, 15 minutes, go get some coffee, and then come back and you'll have some of your data. And now this makes a ton of sense with the direct. I mean, they just also released, we'll talk about this in our next podcast, but another mirroring feature with SQL databases. This is incredible in terms of the ability for us to access our data in ways that, I don't know,
previously not capable of doing.
Very much changes what the behavior
super cool.
we're going to do.
It is a super cool. Do you watch Dude Perfect? You must watch Dude Perfect. That's a thing off Dude Perfect.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've consumed a lot in my many years. So maybe,
so much content.
Maybe it's just regurgitating.
Well, we could have a cool, not cool feature in here.
Yeah, cool, not cool. That was definitely super cool.
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome.
Paginated reports, super cool.
Super cool.
Always been.
With that, let's jump into our main topic then. So thanks for the intro, Seth. Appreciate that one. That was good. I didn't realize we had an intro, so my apologies. All right. That being said, let's jump into our main topic. Seth, if you don't mind, we have a great mailbag question today talking about free users and using that within the Power BI ecosystem. Give us a read.
Hi, guys. Huge fan of your podcast. My question is about sharing to users within the company that only have a free license. I have easily digestible and fairly simple productivity reports that I want to send out daily. How can I share these if I can't add them as a subscriber? Would love to hear your thoughts on digestible report sharing. Am I missing something huge? Thanks, and I look forward to hearing from you all.
This is a great question. I think this is going to very quickly devolve into licensing because the licensing is the tricky part here that is not clean or easy to understand. I mean, I guess it is if you spend a lot of time thinking about it, but for companies that are just showing up to this, they're like, whoa, there's like 1,000 options here. Which is the most cost-effective option for what I need? There's a lot of like, it depends type questions on what you're doing with your data models.
So this is, let's break this up because it will instantly go into licensing. But
I think so.
In this scenario, we have like a pro user, right? And then they're building reports. And they want to share those reports with unlicensed users.
Yep.
What is that experience, right? Like,
yes.
How can they do that in that framework without any pro licensing? Like,
Correct.
What are the options, I guess?
And we're also making a clear note here is there is a free, I mean, you can either have users with Pro, and this is what I think this is doing here, Pro, free, and or none, basically is what I'm kind of thinking about here, because you could have users in your organization that don't have a free license attached to them. And then what I'm assuming here is, I'm making some assumptions with this question, that we're talking about all the other users that you're wanting to share reports are in that have already been authorized the free Power BI license, which means they can get to PowerBI.com, they can use my workspace, but they can't get to anything that's inside a workspace. Sorry, my workspace they have access to. They can't get to anything that in any other shared workspace across team members, because that would require a pro license to do that.
And it sounds like, too, the big thing here is not the access to the report. We're talking about subscriptions. That's the major aspect here, too, that I kind of caught myself, too.
That's a good point, Tommy.
It changes it.
Yes. And I was also interested in the subscriptions part of this, because subscribing to things.
Well, it's the new experience. I like, if you think about sharing, right? Like they changed that to like that SharePoint subscriber dialog box.
Yep.
So like, I think that's one in the same.
No,
right? Like,
we're talking.
No,
to me, it sounds all like an email subscription.
Well, that's where I initially went, but I'm not sure if that's really what I wanted, though. Like, so there's
not what you want.
Well, again, I was just trying to read into the word subscriptions, because that I wanted to kind of dive into that word specifically, because if you talk about subscribing to things,
I want to send out daily.
I think that's what that means. Because there's also, you could subscribe to when the data set refreshes, because you could also just be alerted when a refresh has occurred and you're subscribing to a report. It will email you, hey, this report is now done and data is now loaded. You can now click this link and go someplace, basically to PowerBI.com, to go see a current report. So I think the word subscriptions, we need to define that word in order for us to kind of answer the rest of the question, because I think we have to make some assumptions around what he means, or he or she means by subscriptions. So Tommy, you're saying, does that sound like an emailed report of a subscription?
So it sounds like the subscription, because there's three things that I see. I want to share to users. I want to send out daily. How can I share if they're not a subscriber? And I want to report. So those are the two ones. I'm like, okay, there's no way that someone actually clicking a link and going to report. That sounds like an email only access kind of thing, or that's the way they want to deliver the content. I want to send it out daily. I'm not sending a link out daily manually. That's an automated system, which is only the email subscription. So
I want to, again, when I think about the word subscriptions, I think about like paginated reports, and I'm sending you tables of data. That's kind of that's what I initially think about when I hear the word subscription. So that's what I think about. Not saying it's right. So when I hear that word, one thing I would kind of communicate to this user and potentially to their organization is, did you realize like the data is always fresh if you're using certain parts of the Fabric ecosystem or Power BI Pro license ecosystem? Because I think things slightly change here depending on what kind of licensing you're using. So if we're talking about, hey, I'm creating a refresh, an import mode, and I need to let everyone know the import mode is done, that's potentially a different experience than I need to send you something to your inbox that is a table of data that needs to appear. So if you say subscriptions is, I want you to know the data is refreshed, that's a different pattern. And I think the assumption would be, as if this were me in my spot, I would communicate to my organization, hey, the data is always up to date. Every night it's current. So it doesn't matter. You don't need an inbox email to show you the data is current. I would add something to my reporting that says data refreshed as of, and then put an actual date on the report and just tell everyone, look, the report's always up to date. You don't need to do anything special. Go to this app
they're not
or SharePoint site or wherever.
But they can't access the report.
So this is where the licensing discussion comes in, right?
But in the free realm, right? Subscribing to a report where it gets emailed to you, or you get a notification or whatever.
Yep.
Is still a pro license thing. It's not a free. So if you're trying to share or subscribe or do things on the report you've developed and give it to other people, you're gonna run into the roadblock of licensing. Regardless.
Yes. But an F64 or a P1 So it's the difference of
but this is a pro one user has a pro license creating content, or no users have.
Yeah.
Right. So either they're creating their own stuff in their own workspace, right? Because you
Correct.
for free.
Yep.
You can download Power BI Desktop. You can connect all these things. You can create fantastic reports, and you can deploy them to your workspace in the Power BI service. That's it.
Yeah.
Like the licensing has always been constructed around sharing the content.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
So
my question then maybe would be is what's the cheapest way?
Well,
so regardless, any free user showing up to PowerBI.com requires some additional licensing. Would we agree to say it that way?
As a consumer,
as a free user consumer of content, there needs to be a licensing change from just pro. I mean, there has to be it's the pro user plus some other purchased something, right?
To consume content in the service.
Yes. Okay. So I want to make sure we level set on that one because there's like the cheap option and then there's an expensive option. Well,
and there's the
I'm loath to bring this up too.
Okay. Go ahead.
Because I'm gonna say it just because it's an option.
I know what you're gonna say.
But I hate saying it.
Emailing around the file or
no,
in the file
no. There is an option here, and it's published web. But
just threw up my mouth a little bit.
You should because you could get fired.
Yeah, that's the instant fire button,
right?
Yeah, that is
an around, but you're putting you're publicly exposing all of your data from your company.
Yeah, that is not a good option.
Fireable offense.
Fireable offense.
So around the technology of Power BI, that would be the only way a user could access a report.
Yeah, you wouldn't even need a free user at that point.
Without a license. You could be any user, and it's been proven. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying from a technology perspective, it's an option.
It does exist.
But as I say that, it's been proven even when this feature came out by the Microsoft the MVP community that these links are findable and searchable.
Yep.
So if you don't think, or if I would even caution for listeners that are using that potentially in this scenario, that your data is exposed. 100% it's exposed to someone. And if somebody finds it, what is it going to do? Right.
We're going to recommend pause the podcast now. We'll be here. Yeah.
You go turn off published web.
Yep. Come back. Have that feature.
We'll be waiting.
But anyway.
Yep. Maybe we don't have the time to, but I feel like we're talking about the branches here and not necessarily the root of the problem. We're talking about this access, which I'm finding this more common, actually, this question. And I think that's why I chose it on. I need to give more people greater access to very simplistic type data, but I don't want to worry about the bells and whistles about the cost. And to me, that's what I'm hearing. And this is literally the second time this week outside of the podcast that I've heard this type of question, this type of query, so to speak. And I don't know, there's Power Automate. I think there's still obviously more technology things and licensing we could get into, but there's the greater question about here is I have basic data I need to send to key people that I don't need them to spend $20 a month because we're not doing $20 a month worth of consumption.
I want to unpack some price. Let's talk this is pricing based off of the US. And so I think you're right on spot on point to your Tommy. Like we're talking about pro users. Like what is the value of these reports, right? Let's quantify the value of these reports that we're trying to produce here. So if your sharing audience is small, 30, 40, 50 people, you could turn them all on to pro licenses and you can publish everything through an app. And so to me, that means it depends on the audience size here to some degree. If you're talking about pro users, your first option is, well, you can't have free users consume content from PowerBI.com with only pro. So let's talk about that first. It's an easy win. Turn on pro users licensing for all the users that you need, and everything's shareable. Boom, done. 30 people, that's $300 a month in the US. It's $10 per user per month. That's your cost. If that's too expensive and you want to go other routes, The only other cheaper method that I'm aware of is moving into the Fabric F SKUs. So the Pro user still needs to exist. You're still paying $10 a month per person on that one. And on the Power BI Pro, or sorry, the Fabric SKU, you can embed content internally and externally. So what that means is a Fabric F2 SKU is $250 a month. It's $150 a month if you pay for prepaid pricing or something like that. It goes down and cheaper. So you get now to this $150 a month pricing. There's a lot of restrictions that go along with that. Model has to be a certain size. Those users that are free do not get access to the PowerBI.com portal. So you're now forced to embed the report into Teams or SharePoint or some other third-party application.
More
just going to let you
more
overhead.
subscriptions,
It's more management.
Right.
But if we're already in the realm of I'm trying to get all my free users access to something, it already sounds like the company has made the decision that, look, we'll let this user do extra work in order to save us money monthly to get to this point. So at $150 a month, now we're talking, we only need 15 users to consume the report. So if your audience is greater than 15, a Fabric F2 SKU is the cheapest free user consumption method you can use. So Pro, $10 per month, plus an extra $150 per month. And then you can use that for as many free users as you need until you run out of capacity and things start falling over. So if you don't have an efficient model and it's not very small, you're going to run into problems if you do that. And it just scales from there.
But it's okay. The easiest is Pro.
The easiest is just, but it's a little bit more expensive than the Fabric F SKU.
But it is by far.
Well, expense in terms of the licensing to do something.
Right.
Yes.
But you're adding more expense in terms of implementing a solution that works.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
And this is where
it's a balance.
I've always been on the side of, even I won't bring up names, but there have been significant MVPs who worked in the realm of like smaller, mid-sized companies who always were talking about licensing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even in this case, and I've always been on the on the other side, which is, why are we having this argument? Like $10 a month, like in this
great value.
You're saying $300 a month for 30 users. That's $3,600 a year.
There it is.
What do you get for that?
Yes,
you get an entire ecosystem.
Yes,
So one, you get an ETL tool. You get out of the box connections to almost every third party application or thing you would be using that stores data.
Yep.
You get tabular models, compression of data. Yep. You get a reporting tool. You get a service that shares that. You get an entire ecosystem that lets you build business intelligence in your organization for $3,600.
Yeah. And almost unlimited storage if you use data flows and the service for 100 terabytes of storage information you can have in your workspace. This is crazy.
It's mind blowing, the value there.
Yes.
Right. So in many cases, like going down this free route or trying to copy PBIX files or pay, it's not a solution. And if you think about how much companies spend on third-party tools to solve a problem,
oh my gosh,
with Power BI, you can solve many different problems as it relates to insights.
I want to hang on your point there just a little bit.
Where I know
Tommy. Well, hang on. I want to hang on your point, Tommy. Seth, you said one thing: $3,600 a month for the value. I get it.
No, per year.
Or sorry, per year. $3,600 per year for the whole solution for all those users. So totally understand that part. I think there's a cultural aspect of this that is being communicated here, but that's not quite in this yet. The reason there are free users here is that all those free users are not required yet to have the full capability of Pro workspaces and apps. And so I think potentially here is in cultures in companies where the data culture is more of there is a person, there's a Tommy, make me my reports, just send them out and let me know when they're done. There's the culture is not yet ready to spend the $3,600 per year to really because the rest of the team doesn't have the knowledge or the capabilities yet. They're still very basic in their analytical skills. And I think how I read this question is the user is saying, look, without saying it directly, the culture's not there yet. I couldn't bring everyone on as pro users. All I'm looking for is the most easiest, the least cost expensive way of developing and building this out for the rest of our team. And so they will get there. And I think the answer is, as you expose them more to this experience, more and more users will kind of adopt it. But that's a cultural push that's also happening here. So there's some, it feels like there's a little bit of a language of a cultural aspect here as well.
This is close to what I was going to say.
Okay, sorry, Tommy. Go ahead.
Close, where they're either actually, I was going to say they're actually either prime for that push now or time to switch companies, because it sounds like they're at that beginning.
So drastic.
Sorry. This is a hot take.
Hot take already.
No, but honestly, though, they're either at that point where I feel like this user can have that conversation, like, well, what's the long-term plan here? Like, what are we really doing here? Because someone's asking for this. There's probably other situations like this. This is not the one time this person has heard this type of question, where this is a perfect time to bring that conversation. Seth, I think you hit it on the head on the breaking point or the threshold of, what are we doing here? Are we just going to be sending out data? Well, we can spend $3,600 a month for the entire team and provide that. And I think that this is the perfect time to have that conversation, because the odds are too, they're not going to just want this one digestible data and they're going to be happy forever. This is the start of something or in the middle of something. That data culture, to me, is primed to say, what's the long-term plan here for data? What are we really going to do here? We can do this. We can do it a really cheap way, and it kind of works. Or for a very, very minimal cost and an incredible amount of value, make this a scorecard if it's digestible and you're trying to track your KPIs. We can do that with $10 a month per user. To me, this is someone perfect, primed to have that conversation around, can we talk about what the short-term, midterm plan for data in our company is?
I'm gonna, Tommy, you're making a great point here, and I want to jump on this one as well. I saw a YouTube short from Marco Russo at SQL BI. Marco brought on this thing. He says, how to get your boss to buy you something. And he literally goes and was literally talking through like the tabular editor purchase experience. And he goes, don't talk about the tool. Don't talk about what the tool is going to do for you. Talk about the value in the time you save to use said tool. So I'm going to put the link in the chat window here.
I did not see that. So this is
so good.
But
it's true.
It's so true. Don't talk about the tools. And I think the reason why we're having this conversation also is, to your point exactly, Tommy, right? It's a point in time where we're saying that the company doesn't really understand the value of the dollar spend to make this thing become a reality or in the organization. And maybe leadership education needs to be held here to a higher degree around, look, we're going to get this. We're going to get this extra storage. We're going to get all these extra features. We're going to get models at this 1 gigabyte size. This would fit all of our data in our company. Whatever the things are, right? It's not just a little one-off experience that someone is building in a one department. It's this is a strategy for the organization to start adopting these things. And you start with, right? Part of this strategy starts with, let's get this thing correctly built for those free users. Let's adopt them. And then let's actually plan to say, look, this is going to be step one in multiple steps in our company, where we're going to continue to invest more on our people, our learning, our education. So that way we maximize the use of this Power BI tool, because it's silly for you to go out and buy a Power BI tool and not actually use it to its full potential.
Yeah, I think I would even back it up further before we go down to like huge cultural
back it up.
Changes things is in that same vein. It's not, hey, I need $10 per user per month so I can send this report out, right? The sell here is, there's this report that is the first of many that are going to solve this problem for the organization or give insights. Like what Power BI allows us to do is have a single interface, build all of the infrastructure anybody needs to not just consume these, but we can teach people how to leverage this stuff themselves too. Right. And there's no additional cost for any of this, right? Yes. So we as an organization all these people who want to consume from the same singular location where all of our reporting is. It's simplified. It solves this immediate need. It also enables them to do more, right?
Mhm.
Which we can show them how to do. And in terms of licensing, there's tons of ways we can scale with this too. Like we can start off with this, we can monitor who's using it, who's not, we can repurpose licenses, all of that stuff. But the value to the business is we now have a central place. Things can be shared in this ecosystem. This is where people can digest the content, digest the data, get, access to things, not in silos. We can centralize all of that around this ecosystem. You can do that with a pro license.
Yeah. And this also speaks to where we've done a ton of our one of our series of the strategic implementation of Power BI. I think as you look at this, I think we initially, I was looking at this in a vacuum of this one particular solution or problem. And how do I solve this one problem? But again, I think when you're dealing with something where your organization or your team doesn't have the necessary technology or the qualifications at that time, but there's a request like this is great opportunity. This is a great opportunity to say, what's the long-term plan here? How can we think more strategically rather than trying to do this with band-aids and tape and glue? We're trying to obviously have there's a longer term solution here. And
But I think you communicate. I think you communicate the longer solution. But I think now we just need to we're in a place where we're just trying to get it to work now because we know we have a need. Like someone built a good report. We're just starting. I'm not sure if I can put my head around the full. We're going to have a whole strategy day one. I think this is going to be like a kind of a slow and grow kind of standpoint. Like we're going to land it and we're going to get started, and I would probably start with what's the cheapest way I could get started with the free users now. And then we'll figure out the rest of this later on. Hire Tommy or Mike or Seth later on to come in and kind of give you like the roadmap of like where you are culturally, where you are with the technology, and then figure out the next steps. Like I think that's where you go. But I don't
know.
I wouldn't assume a new user. Again, this is I'm relatively thinking here. This is a newer user to the Power BI. We're not going to come in and like COE, COP, all the like. We're still just trying to get things off the ground here. I think at this point. Well, I don't know.
I feel like if my boss comes to me with this situation, it's like, listen, we don't have anything. You got to do this for free or whatever the situation that we have. I want to push back a little with my boss. Say, we can do it. We'll figure out a solution.
But you know everything though.
Fine.
Like, so
well, that's why I'm listening to the podcast.
Well, thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope we get some knowledge out of this.
I'm not saying, oh, by the way, we need to set up the COE. Do we have a data governance team? We need data governance. I'm just saying, what's the longer term plan here? Because I don't want to set this up. And then
I agree with you.
And then we're just doing the house of cards.
We should be looking a step or two ahead. We don't need to look at the finish line and say we need to look at the finish line right now. I don't think you're going to see it this far out.
Ish, maybe. It depends on the person's role, right? Like if I'm building reports and I just like the question is, I'm building reports. I need to know how to get these reports into people's hands.
Okay.
Do I care about the long-term strategy of business intelligence if my job is to build reports? Heck no.
Fine.
I would agree. Like, hey guys, how do I do this? You do this with a pro license.
Okay. Well, let me ask you guys, what's going to be what's the logical next step of the organization once they get this access to the data for free?
Largely depends on what direction they want to head.
I know.
I have done a test. I have done a test with free users accessing apps, using free users attached to a workspace, using a viewer-only access, but then giving them put the workspace in an F2. I think that either you go all pro users, depending on how many pro users you have. I think that's your first step. You can't go after this with free users, or if you want the free users experience, it's going to be $150 a month minimum to get them in the hands of all your free users, or you're looking at like a P1, which even then I wouldn't recommend any of the P SKUs anymore because all the features you would need in the P SKUs are now all included in the Fabric SKUs, and there's more features. So I would honestly say, look, if you're really trying to get to these free users, if you want to, you're going to have to pay more than just $10. Like to Matt Allenton's point on talking about embedding stuff and getting things working for organizations, you're never going to get below that threshold of $10 a month for all of your users. Please pay for the tool because it's an amazing tool. You get all the value from it. it is something that you need to pay for, but the cheapest entry point is a yearly subscription on an F2 SKU that gives you the ability to embed it into either SharePoint, Teams, or you can give them app access by adding them as a viewer in the workspace. They can't access the workspace, but they can access the reports through the app. So if nothing else, you can at least give them direct access to the information, and then you can have that scheduled or emailed out. Yep. So all of that should work. If you're going to email data to everyone, like you're going to give them tables of information, go down the Paginated Reports route. You can set up subscriptions. You can send them tables of data every single time on that pro user. That pro user can do a lot of things in that single thing, and that way no one gets access to the report, but they have access to the data. So it depends on what you're trying to share. If you're trying to share visuals, you're going to have to go down the Fabric route. If you're going to share just tables of data and give them regular subscriptions to getting the data, that happens with the Paginated Reports on Table Experience. Is that how I would design this?
Well, maybe quite misheard. If I provide this free service, what's the logical thing the organization going to want next? Are they going to want it? Are they just going to be happy with this and say the next year they're going to just get this emailed subscription?
You keep talking about like the organization, like they know what this guy or girl is doing.
No, it has
or care, right? Like it's not the organization. It's someone in the business is trying to solve a business problem. And if you go down the licensing route, now it has to be part of a larger organizational problem versus like even what Mike was saying as far as like, what are the options I have to just do my job and get data to somebody? Because sometimes, and the reason I'm pushing back here is like, sometimes, Tommy, people don't want to make it an organizational problem, right? Like maybe there is no budget and we all know that already, right? Guys, I'm just trying to get some data to these people. I have constraints and either I don't know that, like around the licensing or there is no licensing, right? So I'm just saying like there's another way to view this as opposed to immediately tying one of these people to the organization.
No. And here's all I'm saying. All I'm saying is once you do this, and no matter how you do it, if you do it the free route, and this is their, like I said, if we're assuming they're at this very early stage, this is like dropping a bone for my dog. What are they going to want? They're expecting more. And that's all I'm saying is however you do this, if you go this free route with something free or whatever your email,
that I agree with.
That's what I'm trying to say.
And that is a caution, right? Because to Mike, if you're the person that has to manage everything all the time and configure and set up a lot of things every single time you develop a report, if this is going to scale,
it's a balance game.
That's why you would go down the route of like, hey, pro's super easy because you have these buttons and it's just like, I'm going to deploy, I update the app, and then it's already pre-shared, right? I'm done.
I would agree with that.
Because there's parts of the system that are designed to work together to build the complete solution versus just parts of it.
Would we go any other route when it comes to a solution here? Because there's Power Automate that actually has a lot of abilities.
You got to pay for Power Automate.
I know you got to pay for it. So
it pushes you in the, like, I think the Power Automate is more expensive than the F2 SKU.
No, I mean, if you do one flow with that, you could and then you got to
probably potentially.
No. I see what you're saying. There's really a cost to anything, and I think there's no great solution here to get away with this for free.
And I think that's our point. I think our point is like there's going to, like, you're getting an amazing service. I think sell the value of the service, right? And I think, we don't have to look at the whole solution, but there is a solution to get free users involved. And honestly, it starts at an F2 SKU. That's the cheapest way you can get going. Outside of that, we're now talking about your next cheapest solution is, okay, let's really make a strategic decision around this one. We know we need to get these pro users in place. And again, as long as you don't have 100 pro users, because that now turns into $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year, right? If you don't have 100 users or less, it's really looking like it should be probably a pro license and to get people started. And that's really that's where most organizations start. Most organizations start at the pro license level, and that's where they begin.
What's interesting about it though is, and there's some chatter in chat around decisions, right? It's a pricing model. What is crazy about it though is Microsoft gives you all of these things for $10 a month, and it doesn't put it behind the immediately you're paying us $1,000 a month just to get started, just to have the infrastructure, because that's ultimately what they would have to do. So there must be like a scale of, as users are engaging, they put the pay scale around sharing, which was, what is the value of data and insights? It's sharing it, right? So that's why I'm okay with the pricing model.
Yeah.
And another thing that could be done here is, there are, because it's per person, per user, right? If these subscribers to these reports or productivity reports could go to a manager, maybe you only need 5 licenses, and then those
Start there.
managers subscribe to the reports, get the emails, and they can forward them onto their team or something.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Start
there's
small.
there's ways to like incrementally, grab a set of licenses and apply them to a smaller subset.
That's a great point.
Ensure those users are accessing and using the reports, which is also one of the things why I don't like subscriptions, unless I don't think those are tracked. As far as like usage is concerned.
It's 100% tracked in the.
It is tracked.
Oh, yeah. You will see at minimum, you will see an activity in the activities log that will show you.
But all that tells you is that a subscription kicked off.
Yes, correct.
Say someone opened it, but no.
Right,
correct.
And that's my point with emails and why I don't
100%.
like them, because you can't tell who's actually using them.
Nope.
Right. Whereas if I'm giving you a license, and I give you access to the report, I can tell
exactly
whether or not you're looking at the report.
Yes.
You're utilizing that $10 a month, as opposed to, I could take your license and give it to somebody else because you're not using it at all, which happens a ton, by the way.
I know. Okay.
I agree.
I'm going to slightly push back. I see exactly what you're saying, but if we're in that early stages of data adoption, data culture, then this is something I'm probably going to be okay with initially, because odds are, again, I'm not all of a sudden want to push people to this new Power BI experience when they just want their data. We're just now introducing them to data, right? Because they're not saying Power BI, they're saying email subscription or data subscription. So I'm going to be okay with that initially, because I want to be proactive to them. We can get to the point where, hey, are you using this after a month now? But these are people who, again, they're not willing to spend, or they're uncomfortable or unaware to spend $10 a month for themselves or for other people. So yeah, I'll send it to you.
I don't think, but that's not part of the question either, right? Like, maybe they don't even know pro license. How do they go about doing it?
Yeah,
because there wasn't pushback saying, I don't want to pay the pro license. It's just they all have free licenses.
I assume that, but that's a good point. No, that's a good
point.
And
that could also be, and there's also some friction here, right? Someone gets a pro license, and potentially companies are having third parties manage all their licensing things for them. So they may not even be, their company may not even own the licensing to do things, and so for them to go through, it's a purchase requisition and all this extra. I mean, there's a lot of red tape because of the way the company is structured to get people beyond that step. And to be honest, it's extremely easy to go into Azure, light something up, FSKU, here we go.
If you have the permission.
Boom. If you have the permission. Yeah. So this is a great question. And I think this is something that every so often kind of comes up. And really, I think this is a new user question. I think if I had to kind of wrap my final thoughts here for this one, would be really understand what the need of your business is, and think through the step where you are right now. You can get around some of the free user pieces, some of the licensing pieces, but regardless, I think Enterprise AR was making a note there, right? Just kind of tell the executives the truth, right? Sharing and distributing content costs us money. It is a paid service that we're going to be getting into. If we think this report is valuable enough, let's quantify the value of that report and how important is it to our business. If this is a production report and this is essential for people seeing things on their phones, their mobiles, their whatever those things are, this is important. And we should put the money behind it, and then think not the full finish line, but think a couple steps ahead. Let's think about where we want to get to with this, and Does everyone get pro licenses? Do we roll this out to everyone in the organization? How do we want to start thinking about the data culture? Because it sounds like what you're transitioning to is you're bringing this new tool to your company. Your data culture needs to grow a little bit, and now you have to bring these two together. You have to have a plan for that. So just at least plan for how you're going to get this done as investing in the company and the data culture. All right, that's my final thoughts. Tommy?
Honestly, I think, like I said, big time, this is a great opportunity for looking at what are we trying to do here. If this is one of your first data projects, or the first time your organization is asking for data in this type of way, what a great time to actually say, okay, what can we do in the next 2 months? Is this going to be the same situation? Where are we going from here? Not saying you have to solve it, but start asking that question. And it's a great opportunity to say, again, to get what you want, maybe some licensing, but where are we going from here?
And is that any final thoughts for you, Seth?
Yeah, I think the simplest road here is just go the pro route. And if there's a great way to do this is get 2 licenses, one for yourself and one to share. Right? Use the power of all of the technologies under this tool to showcase, like, hey, I've got this report. Think about all of the other stuff that we now get in this platform. How many users do we need?
Yes.
Make kind of a business case towards the value add of this simplified user experience, one place all these people can go and consume reports. And just kind of scale it up to the point where it's cheap to show and demo. And then you can kind of naturally and organically grow in whatever direction. Ultimately, it's not worth trying to figure out how to share content in the free space. Microsoft has put enough guardrails in to lock things down from sharing, because that's ultimately where the licensing comes into play. So the easiest path forward there is just to go the pro route and show the value.
I love it. Awesome. With that, thank you very much. If you like this episode, if you liked us answering your question, we do mailbags or these questions from our audience very often. So these are real questions from real people and we talk through how our perspective or our expert perspective on these things. We've been around this stuff since it came out. So we're trying to help people, navigate these roads. So if you like that, please share this content with somebody else. We really appreciate that. That's the only way we share this content is through your word of mouth and how you share things either on social media or other places. So please be vocal about it. We'd love for you to share this content if you found this valuable to you as you're thinking through free users in your organization. Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. We're off what Mike said. We love answering these new questions, these basic questions. We're going to challenge everyone. If you have an advanced question, you want to stump us with something in some situation, we're ready for it. Go ahead. And if you want to do that,
we'll make up an answer for sure.
Yeah. That question, topic, or idea, you can go ahead and challenge us at powerbi.tip/podcast. There's our address. Find us there. Leave your name and a great question. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. and join the conversation on all powerbi.tips social media channels.
Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.